everyone, this is Justina Bonilla. This is LatinHorror.com, and today we're interviewing the director of Habitual, Johnny Hickey. Hi, Johnny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Pretty excited about this Friday. Friday 13th. Habitual's going to be everywhere on demand, so I'm excited.
Well, it's a perfect day to release a horror movie, that's for sure.
No doubt, we got lucky securing that date. People wanted to push for Halloween, obviously, because it's Halloween. And this Halloween was obviously a very weird Halloween, be it where we're at in the world. And something just about Friday the 13th just grabbed me. It was 2 weeks after, and obviously it's Friday the 13th. And I'm like, let's just go for that. Let's just drop.
That's wonderful. So before we talk about the film, I wanted to ask you, so what were your biggest cinematic influences or heroes?
Stanley Kubrick for sure, which is pretty amazing that one of the fan magazine, someone put out when they reviewed Habitual recently, they said it's a Clockwork Orange meets Saw. And Saw is great because, the gore factor, James Wan and everything, and it was pretty stylistically different for a horror film, the original Saw. So to kind of have that compared with a filmmaker that I really kind of like in tune with, as far as like kind of the subliminal messages and the different layers, where it's not just a formulated movie. And that's why Stanley Kubrick was always like really, I don't know, different to me than a lot of filmmakers.
When I watched the film, the things that popped up to me where I could see influences kind of like Evil Dead, Hostel, and the 80s slashers. Were any films like that of influence in this film?
For sure. So when I was young, I grew up in a really rough, crazy neighborhood in Boston. My life was very different, we'll just say. And horror movies were my escape. Horror movies was something that I watched and I connected with, in the sense of like all this other stuff that was so bad around me. The horror films was the only thing that could really distract me when I was young. And I'm talking like young kid, like 10, 11, 12, 13. So when you say Evil Dead, like, yeah, the original Evil Dead, even the original Children of the Corn and different movies that I would watch along the way really attracted me to horror. The original Hellraisers, Nightbreed. So those slasher gore films, I always appreciated real practical gore. So when you say you've seen a lot of that in that, it's mixed kind of with the old slasher kind of, gore scenes and practical effects versus visual effects, mixed with also the stylistically way of shooting that I can see why Evil Dead also was compared to it, because of like the chase scenes and the floating camera kind of angles and stuff, the real fast movements from one scene to the next were definitely inspirational to me, and probably why a lot of that kind of shines out in Habitual.
Walker to Douglas, go ahead.
Yeah, we got a tip about kids scouting local asylums, looking to set up a rave tomorrow night. Gonna need you to spot check all buildings on site.
Roger that.
So what were your inspirations to write Habitual?
My first film was a crime drama called Oxymorons. And Oxymorons was a violent crime drama based on a chapter of my life. And when I cut the original version of Oxymorons, there was about 25 minutes of additional scenes that were more horror dream sequences, that some of them made it to the cut of the film, but not all of them made it to the cut. And they really wanted me to clean it up and keep it more like true to life than kind of the psychotic break scenes that were in that film. And so from that, I said, my next film, I really want to kind of attack the same issue, but make it more of these kind of psychological horror scenes than a true to life movie.
With Habitual, I really liked the introductory visuals that you had of the facility, the abandoned facility. And I was wondering, how did you get those shots?
The way I was able to get those, I got those locations. We actually filmed in 13 different abandoned state asylum buildings in Massachusetts. With my first film, Oxymorons, I was able to get a bunch of different locations because of the subject matter that my film was about, was to show the collateral damage of the drug epidemic and kind of what it was doing to communities, particularly the community where I was from in Boston. So the city really came together and gave me a lot of access to things on my first film. So I applied that same message in Habitual and was able to utilize the state and different towns to say, hey, I'm making this movie. I'm giving a lot of local people work, young actors and people inspiring to do something different, giving them an opportunity. But we need to get into these buildings to really make it look cool, and liability insurance. You got liability insurance. Here you go. And I was able to gain access to two different state hospitals. The Tewksbury State Hospital, though, we were lucky to use this building called the Nerby Building. It was built in the late 1800s, and it still has the wooden doors with the fingernail marks in them from the patients clawing the doors and stuff. But that property has been used in Slender Man, Castle Rock, the new Hubie's Halloween with Adam Sandler. So other films actually filmed in that same property as us, but not that particular building.
Oh, wow. So it was multiple facilities that you used for this film.
Yeah. So, it's a great thing about filmmaking is when you're able to take a location that was in Westborough, Massachusetts, that are a lot of those exterior shots you see, and some of those buildings were more difficult to film in because of the hazards and asbestos and stuff. So we were limited to which buildings there we could get safely in for the cast and crew. But over in Tewksbury, we had access to an abandoned asylum building that had a clean state police used for canine training, but it had electricity and heat. Whereas sometimes we were on location on the other side of Massachusetts, running on generators in the middle of the winter, which you can see the cold air in those exterior scenes where it was literally 18 degrees out. So we would, shoot here and shoot inside here, but you actually feel that you're in this building, even though it may have just been the exterior versus the actual location that we did the interior shots in.
For the interior of these shots, I would have to say it was very creepy when you looked at the facility or the environment that you created. You could feel the staleness, you could smell it. That's how I felt when we watched the main characters going through the facility. And so I was wondering, did you have to add more to create that eeriness for the environments other than the use of lighting and characters, or were those environments pretty much looking like that?
We shot on red. We had great lenses and that stuff, but really with the lighting and stuff, I really did my best to use a lot of the organic light in certain scenes and kind of let those places rest as they were. Shoot stuff at low light capability at high end so that even in those dark shots, it just feels real and organic to you. It doesn't feel, all polished in Hollywood. It feels almost like you're watching something real because you're really in this location, and the walls and the colors and all that stuff that naturally, the mold and cracks and just the age and the weather and the blight, which is what the character's name in the film is, within those locations really just came to life on camera for us.
And I also noticed in the film, there was a scene where, I'm not sure if this was intended to be an Easter egg or something symbolic to the story. One of the doors had spray painted on it, "Not an exit."
So that was there. So the not an exit was there. Like I said, like for me and for this film, particularly for this film, and these locations, these subliminal kind of messages that, not an exit, meaning like there's no way out. There's no way out from that world that you're in at that point. Without giving a spoiler, where the characters put themselves by that position of the movie and where the story is going for those characters, there's no way out. And so there's these subliminal messages. That's a great one that you caught, but there's so many more that really represent the cautionary tale of the film, on the storyline of it. So, but we didn't spray paint that on the door to do that. It was there, and I seen that shot, and I was like, grab that, we got to grab that. So a lot of things just outside of the script itself never stay married to certain things, because in these locations, other things would come up where I could just kind of build these other stories off of the original story itself.
Everybody's dying from this shit. It's killing more people than drunk drivers. You know the shit? You read the shit, you watch the news.
You're never getting out of it.
And so for the film, what was your favorite scene to film? Was there a particular shot or a particular scene or environment where we went, wow, this is...
There's two. The first scene represents the fact of, like, with the horror film and with the gore stuff for the fans, you want to give them at least one kill there's obviously fistfuls of kills in this film, and they're pretty good, but there's one where it's like you want it to be, that kind of moment in Saw where the guy has to saw off his own leg, where the cringe, the kill that kind of stretches the timeline, where it's not just an instant, slash and even though it might look great, but it's in and out so fast. But one where you're really on the edge of your seat. So that one would be where one of the characters has to grab and eat those things off the ground. If you know that scene I'm talking about, with the razor blades and the syringes. And to do that scene and to have that look as to the point where people watch that scene and they're like, how did you do that? How did you even get those to go in his mouth like that and do that? Because it's very real. And it's very cringing for people. And when I did test screenings, I would particularly watch that scene to see in the audience like what their reactions were to it. And I would see people curl up and get uncomfortable and start moving around. And that's really what you want with with the horror part of it, with just like the stuff for horror fans. So that was one of my favorite scenes to shoot and to pull off and to make look as real and organic as it did it for a kill scene. And then I think my scene for my character, as I act in the film too, bringing out that mental patient, and really that scene is all improv. There's no script to that. That's really just me becoming that Simon character, whereas the stuff that Simon's talking about and his expressions on what's going on in the world and the drugs and stuff, you really kind of question if everybody else is crazy or if he's crazy, right? He's definitely crazy, but he might even be more real than some of the people that aren't as crazy as him and locked up like he is at the time.
As you were saying that you acted, but you've also written and directed for this film. So what were the challenges that you found being in multiple roles for this film?
I mean, for me, that's from writing the screenplay to even where we're at right now, even in this distribution process. As a filmmaker, as an independent filmmaker, I have to wear a lot of hats to do the things I wanted to do. Originally, I just wanted to act. I wanted to be an actor, and I found in my mind the only way to really become an actor and really showcase my acting skills is to write my own movies and be in them. Otherwise, I'll just be auditioning along the way for smaller roles. And I want to do it now. And then by doing that, I fell in love with writing characters, writing story, and then ultimately, by default, directing them. My original film, I had a director attached who was filming a documentary in Beirut. And at the time, there was all kinds of bombs and crazy things going off over in Beirut where he was, so he couldn't get back to the States to direct my first film. So I forced myself into the directing shoes, just like, I can do this, I gotta go, we got the money, we got this, we got everything lined up, I can't drop the ball now. And by doing that, I fell in love with directing. For me, directing and acting, as long as I have a good team, and I have an amazing team that worked on both my films, but like my DP, Russ, he, having a great DP and having a great team around me makes it really easy for me to jump out of a role and, fill the acting shoes while directing, knowing that everybody else is handling what they need to handle for me. But I mean, even location scouting and producing and even jumping, out of a trailer because someone doesn't know how to order food and, catering, craft services for the cast and crew. So I had to jump out and do it because there was some issue. Like, these things come up, but like as an independent filmmaker and guerrilla filmmaking, I roll with those kind of punches. This is something I want, and I love this. This is ultimately my dream, is to be doing this stuff. So wearing all the hats doesn't become that difficult if that's really what you want to do, I guess, for me.
And I noticed that in both of your films, there is mentions of drug culture and drug usage. So I was wondering about your interest of applying those into your films. How important was that for you? Very important.
Oxymorons, the first film, is again based on a chapter of my life. I lived a rough adolescence, and the media and different things considered me one of the first oxy bandits. There was a documentary done on me about robbing pharmacies to get OxyContin and all this stuff. And then OxyContin caused a lot of damage to the world, never mind other country for sure, never mind my own personal world. And I always regretted and frowned upon that chapter of my life where I was a part of that world doing those things, and the people I lost to drugs, and how OxyContin turned into heroin, and the dark side of drugs in different places of the world, and how many people are really affected by the drug culture. And there's not enough entertainment films. There's a lot of documentaries and educational stuff and Scared Straight kind of stuff, but there's no like this, this Requiem for a Dream, this Train Spotting. But after that, what is there? And then there's My Film Oxymoron. There's not a niche market that attacks, this issue in a creative way where people are both entertained by the story and then also kind of learning about the collateral damage of the drug epidemic. So for me, that's kind of where I'm going with my filmmaking, as you can see, with Oxymorons being true to life crime drama, and then Habitual being a psychological drug horror, I guess is how you would capitalize on that. Is all my films, I think, moving forward, are going to have some sort of drug tale within them. And that's going to be kind of my niche market and my unique way of being who I am as a filmmaker.
And considering how, unfortunately, there's still such a growing population impacted by opioids or the opium-based medications, it's something that I do feel that we need to talk about. And considering how horror talks about real life, I think that you found as topic that does need to be discussed. So thank you for covering that.
Yeah, no, that's, when I was recovering, I had a near-death experience where I fell 80 feet, 5 stories, fighting, was thrown off a cliff. This story's about that, other places. It would take me forever to tell the story, but, I was in a coma for 7 days, and I woke up out of that coma. I was on morphine, Demerol, Dilaudid, all these different opiate drugs they were trying to give me to kill the pain, but I was having these horrendous nightmares that are showcased in my first film, Oxymorons. Habitual is more of all that kind of stuff in one film, like where it's 99% of that stuff. And when you're detoxing off drugs, and people who have been directly affected by drug use definitely will connect with these layers of my films deeper than an audience member who maybe physically and personally hasn't been affected, but they can still relate to the subject matter because chances are their mother, brother, sister, cousin, friend, somebody, teacher, cop, school nurse, whoever it is affected by that. And you see how much drugs have grown and kind of ripped through the world and especially the nation. So people will connect with it on different layers. And it was really important for me to show those horrors in my head, take them out of my head and those creative ideas and put them into a screenplay and ultimately, Habitual.
I think it was Wes Craven or Alfred Hitchcock that said the most terrifying things are the things in your head versus what's on screen.
And that Alfred Hitchcock's a huge inspiration too. Alfred Hitchcock definitely applied that kind of stuff. Whereas like a lot of stuff that's in your head is scarier than what you're ever going to see. And that's really, it's a different kind of horror, Habitual. It's very psychological and it's scarier horror than, you see a horror where you like, if you believe in ghosts and it's a ghost movie or an exit, those can kind of get to you, at nighttime. People are afraid to watch those for whatever reason, get more afraid watching that type of spiritual stuff. But when you get to a psychological level and it's something that like, especially if you've been doing drugs and then you watch this movie, or if you watch this movie while you're tripping out on drugs, which somebody tried to do at a screening, someone ate mushrooms and went and watched Habitual at one of the test screenings we had and lost their mind in the middle of the movie and ran out and the parking lot. They had to call an ambulance and take so it's like, but that person might think to never want to do drugs again after watching Habitual and that stuff connecting with their sanity on that level. And I'm hoping that younger generations will watch the film that haven't gone that deep down the road yet or are about to, and that Habitual can psychologically deter them from wanting to go down that road.
Alongside your anti-drug message, what else would you like audiences to take away from this film?
I just want people to take away, Tim Burton said this quote, one person's craziness is another person's reality. And that's shown throughout Habitual, both from the character Simon to the kid. And, everybody has something to say about what everybody else is doing. Everybody frowns upon somebody, especially like with drug use and stuff, but you don't know what is going on in somebody else's reality versus your own. It's always respect the world around you and understand why something is different than you or something is way more off than you, and try to find a solution to come up with some sort of balance as opposed to always pushing it away or segregating yourself from those worlds that are always going to exist and always going to be around you, and you definitely got to learn how to deal with them.
Well, Johnny, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here at Latin Horror. We are very excited for the film, and we can't wait for our audience and horror audiences to see what you have up your sleeves.
I can't wait. I can't wait for you guys to check it out. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for welcoming me into the horror world. I'm excited to kind of kick the door and show everybody what I have. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnny.